sorry about it being hot in here.
Don't mistake what you're about to hear
They never came to fix our air conditioner.
for complaining.
This is the kitchen.
Because after 21 years,
This is just the bathroom.
Taje Pennington finally gets to say,
And this is my room.
mine.
My Xbox. I love playing the game.
Not much, but more than she's ever had.
Where does your roommate sleep?
Right there on that mattress in
He
the
sleeps
corner.
over here?
Yeah.
Better than the circumstances that landed her in Georgia's foster care system at 15.
It wasn't a home. It was more so of a prison. Like,
So this is a story about a young lady who was pretty much forgotten in the Georgia's foster care system. She was 18 years old, I believe at the time, where she kind of aged out of foster care. And once she aged out of foster care, they kind of just, there's nowhere for you to go. You know, she doesn't have any family, doesn't have any relatives or anybody like that. She's kind of just left on her own. And so the reporter who I worked with on this story, Savannah Levins, amazing reporter, amazing writer. We went out on this story not knowing who we were going to interview. We didn't know we were going to meet Taje. We just knew that through her investigating that the state basically fumbled millions of dollars that could have helped young people like Taje, people in and out of the foster care system, people who are aged out. She had no idea that these funds were available for her. You know, it could help cover rent, you know, pay for her necessities and things like that. But she kind of just been going about it through some, kind of on her own. You know, she had an apartment that she was struggling to pay for with just a, you know, small little part-time job. I think she had a roommate. But it's one of those things where she just didn't know she had resources. You know, you don't know what's available to you. And part of that is, you know, our state not relaying that information to social services and the organizations who are entrusted to take care of Georgia's youth. And so through her investigation, she saw that only a handful, maybe even that, maybe just a few, actually apply for those funds to help foster care youth. And yeah, like it's really sad to hear, really sad to see, because a lot of these young people end up just kind of on the street, homeless, you know, just trying to make it to another day. And he had millions of dollars that could have been allocated to this young lady or this particular group of people to assist them in life. And so that's kind of just the backstory on the story. Taje, we spoke to a woman who runs a nonprofit organization who helps try to get resources for kids in this situation. And you know, it's hard work. It's hard work. And this story, again, at the time when we shot it, we didn't know we were going to meet Taje, and she is just this amazing, amazing spirit about her. This is a girl about to face eviction, right? And every soundbite that she gave us was like listening to a motivational conference. Like, this girl just had a spirit that just cannot be defeated. And we were able to go into her apartment, you know, see her living situation. And when we shot this story, she could have been evicted at any moment, any day. We had no idea. And we talked to her, and we spoke to the lady who's in charge of the nonprofit, and we pieced that all together. And all this kind of came together the day of, right? So we didn't know who we were going to meet. We didn't know we were going to be talking to her. We were actually supposed to speak to another youth that was assigned to us, but that person ended up canceling. And so we met this amazing young lady, Taje. I'll play part of the story for you guys, and then I'll find a good point in it where we can pause and just kind of talk about how we got to that, you know, point in the story. So
I'm sorry about it being hot in here.
Don't mistake what you're about to hear
They never came to fix our air conditioner.
For complaining.
This is the kitchen.
Because after 21 years,
This is just the bathroom.
Taje Pennington finally gets to say,
And then this is my room.
mine.
My Xbox. I love playing the game.
Not much, but more than she's ever had.
Where does your roommate sleep?
Right there on that mattress in the
He
corner.
sleeps over here?
Yeah.
Better than the circumstances that landed her in Georgia's foster care system at 15.
It wasn't a home. It was more so of a prison. Like, she used to put a bar on my door and I wasn't able to come out. Like, I used to be in my room for months at a time. The police used to come and stuff. They used to tell me that they would get me out the situation that I was in and they would never come back to help me. And I remember, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
It's been 5 months since Taje aged out of foster care and had to make it on her own.
Turned 21, got the apartment, and that's it. They helped me drop my stuff off and then they left. I was literally in here starving. Like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I still don't know what to do.
5 days a week at her $12 an hour job wasn't enough to keep the bills paid or the recent eviction notice from her door.
I'm really scared, but there's a lot of homeless people out there, so at least I won't be the only one. Thank you, boss man.
Social work researchers estimate more than 40% of foster youth will face homelessness within 2 years of leaving the system. A statistic Taje is days from joining.
It's like feeling like your parent has abandoned you because essentially the state of Georgia was their parent.
Pam Parrish is a foster parent and founder of Connections Homes, a nonprofit connecting mentors with young people aging out of care.
If you don't even know kind of where to start, you're going to end up in this cycle of homelessness, poverty, incarceration.
That's why the federal government introduced the Foster Youth to Independence, or FYI, voucher program in 2019, providing up to 36 months of rental assistance for young people like Taje.
This year, Georgia's eligible to receive 769 FYI vouchers, but we've only received 3 obtained by Brunswick and Albany. That's 0.005% of the nearly $12.8 million available this year.
You've got this big
$12.8 million that was available. Not even a full percent of that was used or allocated, right? And so essentially Taje, not knowing, of course, could have been, her apartment could have been taken care of for 3 years. 3 years that she could save her money, get on her feet. Again, this is someone who doesn't have anybody. You know, the foster care system is not something that, you know, I wouldn't want my worst enemy's children in that system. You know, they're not getting a handout or anything like that. These are just, in most cases, children who've been forgotten. And so I'll scrub back a little bit so you guys can kind of see, just from a storytelling perspective, you know, one of my favorite parts about putting this story together is
What to do? Like, I still don't know what to do.
right,
5 days a week.
shooting them, like kind of traveling or going to a destination like on their skateboard. I didn't know she skated until we got there, you know. And when you're you're working in journalism, you just pick up a lot of, I guess one of the main skills you pick up is like foresight and kind of like repetition and like almost kind of predicting. And so I was like, oh, we were in our apartment. We did the interview first. We kind of toured the apartment. She showed us the bedroom. So you see in the beginning of the story, she was playing like Xbox. And we didn't see the skateboard till we were about to leave because I was like, man, we don't have a lot of visuals. That's our main obstacle in telling any story is, as a photojournalist, is how do I fill this? How do I cover this story? How do I tell this story? It just can't be an interview the whole time. I gotta have video. And the only video we had was just kind of her walking through an apartment, her playing an Xbox. And I was like, okay, maybe we can build a story around this. And as we get ready to leave, I see her sitting on the couch and there's like the skateboard like over in the corner. I was like, you know how to skate? And she was like, oh yeah, kind of, I use it to like go to work and like just get around and stuff like that. And I was like, and I looked at my reporter, I said, and so that was kind of like what we used to kind of show the journey of this particular character in this story, the subject of this story. And that's what kind of just brought the story together a little bit more. You think of skaters, that's like, man, like constantly falling. This girl has fallen so many times in her life. She keeps getting back up. And it kind of all just made sense to use her skating, going to the store, going around her neighborhood as part of the journey we show throughout the story. So anytime you're doing a story that involves like, a main character or the subject in this matter, you want to show them doing something. You want to show them at least attempting to do something. And again, this was just like the perfect storm of a story because it was like we didn't know we were going to interview her. I didn't know she could skate. We didn't know what her apartment was going to look like. All we had scheduled and what was a definite that day to shoot this story was the interview with the lady with the nonprofit who helps. I'm sure I'll find her in the story. This is the only thing that was set up that day that we knew we were getting was this lady right here.
Parent and founder of Connections Homes, a nonprofit connecting mentors with young people aging out of care.
Right. Right. This lady, she connects, young people with mentors and kind of just gives them resources that she can find to help them, in the situation that they're in. That's the only thing we had set up that day. And we meet this amazing gem, Taje. And since we did this story, she was able to find another apartment. I'm not sure exactly how she's doing now, but I know she's doing a little better than when we met her. And I believe it was a lot of people who kind of poured out, wanting to help her, wanting to, give her money and things like that. That's one of the benefits to being in journalism. It's not necessarily our agenda, but knowing that we did a story that helped someone, raised awareness. Now, hopefully this can help other, young people who are in the system, raise awareness to the fact that these funds are out here, or, people can kind of see, and we kind of pull back the curtain and let people see, like, when you're looking at someone who might be on the street or a homeless person, they didn't just end up here. She could have ended up just on the street. And one of the few stories I've told where the story itself helped, but also in the process of doing the story, we were able to, get her help, And the story helped me in a lot of ways, it just reminds me sometimes to just remain humble, man, and to just be thankful for all that I have, because my situation can be 10 times worse, But again, just to get into the mechanics of how I shot the story, I do most of my stories with, 3 cameras. And so this is the main camera I had set up on her. I set it up kind of as like a medium shot, just kind of just the chest up, so we can see her emotion, see her face. She's telling a very, deep and compelling story. And so you want to see that emotion on her. And then I have a wide shot here just to kind of establish where we are, right? You can see her on the couch. There's a reporter who's interviewing her. And that's kind of just give you it puts you in the room. With those angles, it kind of puts you in the room as if you were sitting right next to her. That's kind of where I was. I'm right behind her. And so I like to give the person like yourself, the audience who's watching the story, a perspective of just being in the room, right? And these are real stories. These are stuff that we can't make this stuff up, man. Can't make this up. And we only get one chance to do it right. And so, this was definitely a tough story to tell, and it just kind of all came together on its own. I didn't have to do too many like I didn't have to create anything really, other than like there's this one part where it shows like the statistics, you know, right here, 40%.
Researchers estimate more than 40% of foster youth will face homelessness within 2 years of leaving the system.
And so, you know, with this, you know, that's, you know, of course, journalism, you gotta have data, you gotta have some, you know, numbers and things to show people, you know, just how large this is, how big of an impact this may have. And so, you know, 40% of foster youth will face homelessness within 2 years of leaving the system. And I just kind of typed that out. I highlighted the 40% here in yellow, just so people, you know, it's a lot you're processing while you're watching the story. But just that 40% here, I highlighted that so you can see that number. I probably could have made that number bigger, but, you know, I kept it that size and that color. And then I also had a little video in the background, which I darkened a little bit. So you know there's something back there, and it kind of just it keeps the story playing. And then just this text right here. And of course we source it right there. And then, yeah, I can play it from here if you guys want to see a little bit more of the story. So.
Because there's no one who understands how the HUD vouchers work.
The FYI program requires the state welfare agency, DFCS, work with local housing authorities to apply. First, by supplying a list of eligible Georgia youth who have recently aged out of care. But a DFCS spokesperson told us such a list doesn't exist.
Did anyone with DFCS actually set a meeting with you?
No,
Never.
On a state level, DFCS admits they don't track these young people after they age out, telling 11 Alive Investigates they're, quote, working to establish a centralized process. Nonprofits like Connections tell us DFCS has never requested help identifying eligible youth.
There's tons of independent living, transitional living programs that are working with this population of youth that can solve the identification of youth problem.
We reached out to all 13 Georgia housing authorities that are currently eligible.
I did have to create this map. You know, I had to show, you know, just how many places that were eligible to receive these funds and kind of give people a visual, you know, because that's the thing, that's what we're in the business of is visuals. You know, you gotta have something, it's not just a newspaper article. So you're always thinking of what can I put here visually to match what the reporter is saying or the information that we're trying to convey to the audience. You know.
For FYI vouchers. Only 2, Atlanta and DeKalb, said they plan to apply for the vouchers soon. Others, like Fulton and Decatur, said they're focusing their resources on other programs. Nearly all said they hadn't heard from DFCS about the FYI program at all until August 1st of this year. The exact same day we first reached out to DFCS about this story.
Right. And so this is something I made here in After Effects. You know, I downloaded a map to show, you know, the state of Georgia. I looked for something that would represent, you know, I guess, DFCS offices. So I just got a couple of offices here and spread them out in the map. And then here, you know, I zoomed in and just showed the different counties she talked about, the different cities here that she talked about. You know, this is something I made in After Effects. That's definitely something, that's a skill, that's something that, you know, takes a little time to learn. But once you kind of get a hang of it, you know, any idea, anything that you can think of visually, you can bring to life. And that's a gift of, you know, motion graphics, you know, because I couldn't go to these places and record the videos. Right, I can't. I'm going to get on an airplane and show the state of Georgia. You get what I'm saying? So I had to find something to visually represent that, and so that's how I made this graphic here. And everything else is kind of, you know, shot on my camera. Everything is shot on my camera.
The exact same day we first reached out to DFCS about this story.
It would have helped me be in the space where I don't have to worry about where my next meal or where I'm going to lay my head. Instead of thinking about all this, I can think about what I can do to become better for society.
If Atlanta Housing does obtain vouchers, Taje could qualify if they find her. Until then, she's holding on as long as she can to hope and what's hers.
It's just material things. You know what I mean? At least they didn't take my soul.
and I'm gonna let this play out. But this is like the first time I've just let a shot just play out on the end of the story. You know, most of the stories I do is, you know, it's edited, but this is the end of the story, and I just felt like this was just a really good little moment to just see Taje and her friend, you know, and
Oh man, I'm tall. You know what I'm saying? It's
that's
always
me
something.
talking. That's me talking on the camera or whatever. But I just kind of just let it play out, you know, and that's the first time I ever let a story kind of end like that. And that's because, you know, it was over 5 minutes and we were posting it on YouTube. This wasn't the version that aired on TV, because that one we had to keep under, I think, about 3 minutes. But this is the one that we put it online. And yeah, this was a really cool moment. You know, this is normally what a shot would look like when it's recorded. But of course, we have to edit it, you know, to fit the time frame and make the story kind of all come together. But I just let this moment play out, you know.
Like us tall people don't look up enough, and we be missing out, man.
This guy's a character, man.
Yeah, just hold that right there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I think that's gonna be like my stamp now. When I do stories that, you know, if I have the time to think ahead and I have a moment or just a clip that I can kind of just let play out, you know, I might add that on the end of my stories, you know, if it makes sense. I'm not gonna force it. But yeah, this is another one of my stories. This is Emmy nominated this year. One of 5 stories that I have nominated in this year's Emmy Awards. And again, it's not about the awards. It's not about the accolades for me. It's just a passion for storytelling. It's you know, I'm able to be in someone's most darkest, traumatic, tragic point in their lives, and they're trusting me with their story. You know, that's one of the honors of being a journalist, being a photojournalist, is you only get one chance to do this. You know, it's not like I can post a story online and then see what people are thinking and go back and edit it. You know, once it's published, it's out there for the world to see. So I made sure that every shot that I captured, you know, it was lit well and it made sense, you know, and every shot that I used throughout the story, you know, had intention, you know. And so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment if you guys like these kind of videos. And we can always get in more detail. I can always come back to this story and show you in detail how it was edited, the shots that I use. Yeah. And so, until next time, see y'all in the next one. Peace.